Welcome, English learners, to a special series that combines four insightful stories into one comprehensive look at how our feelings can influence our spending decisions. In this video, we'll dive deep into the fascinating world of mind over money, exploring the emotional landscape of our financial choices and helping you sharpen your English listening and comprehension skills along the way. From impulse buys and the weight of old family sayings to the surprising pain of losing out and the subtle pressure of keeping up with others, we'll follow Leo, a young man learning English in the vibrant city of Cali, as he navigates the real-life complexities of money and emotions. Each episode offers valuable lessons about financial well-being and the powerful ways our minds interact with our wallets. Get ready to listen, learn, and gain a deeper understanding of yourself and your relationship with money. Let's begin. Mind over Money, Part 1: The Emotional Landscape of Money. Episode 1: Leo's Impulse Buy. The Saturday market in Cali was always a rush of energy for Leo. The loud calls of the sellers trying to sell their goods, the delicious smells of food cooking on the street, and the bright colors of fruits, vegetables, and handmade crafts made it a feast for the senses. Leo, a young man in his early 20s, worked part-time at a local bookstore and was also studying English. For him, the market was a place where he could find interesting things, but it was also a place where he had to be careful not to spend too much money. Today, something special caught his eye. On a table covered with a checkered cloth, among other electronic items, was a pair of sleek, noise-canceling headphones. Leo had wanted a pair of these for months. His small apartment was often noisy, and it was hard to focus on his English listening exercises with the sounds of traffic and his neighbor's loud salsa music coming through the thin walls. He stopped walking, his eyes glued to the headphones. They looked even better in real life than in the online reviews he had watched many times. The smooth, black surface, the soft ear cushions, the idea of a quiet space, it all seemed very appealing. He picked them up. They were surprisingly light and felt expensive. The seller, a man with a friendly smile and a convincing voice, immediately started talking about how good the sound quality was and how long the battery lasted. Leo listened, his heart starting to beat faster with excitement. He imagined himself listening to his English lessons, the speaker's voice clear and easy to understand. He pictured himself on the bus, not hearing the loud engine or other people talking. He thought about quiet evenings spent listening to audiobooks, learning new words without even trying hard. He knew, in his mind, that buying these right now was not a good idea. His work hours at the bookstore had been a little less last month, and he was trying hard to save money for a new English textbook his teacher had recommended. He had even made a small plan for his money, but it was easy for him to forget this plan. But at that moment, thinking clearly seemed difficult. The strong feeling of wanting these headphones was louder than his good sense. "How much are these?" he asked, his voice showing how much he wanted them. "Ah, these beauties," the seller said, with a smile in his eyes. "Normally, they cost a lot, but today, for you, a special price, only $50. $50 was a lot of his savings, more than he had planned to spend on fun things this month. A small voice in his head tried to tell him to be careful, to remember the textbook. But the strong desire to have the headphones right now was too powerful. The feeling of wanting them, the quick pleasure of owning them, made him forget about the future. "Okay," Leo said, a little too quickly. He reached for his wallet, a small leather one that suddenly felt lighter. He counted out 5 $10 bills and gave them to the seller. He felt happy but also a little guilty. As he walked away from the stall, the headphones safe in their box, he felt very satisfied. He couldn't wait to use them. He imagined the great sound and the peace and quiet they would give him. For a few happy hours, he enjoyed his new purchase. He even stopped at a small cafe and bought a pastry, feeling like he deserved it. But later that evening, back in his quiet apartment, the happy feelings started to go away. He took out his small notebook where he wrote down how much money he spent. Seeing the number 50 written down, a big number compared to the little money he had left, made his stomach feel tight. The textbook. He had promised himself he would buy it this week. Now, that seemed less likely. He thought about the extra hours he would need to work to get his savings back up. He remembered his teacher saying how important that book was for improving his reading skills. A feeling of disappointment came over him, heavy and sad. The excitement he had felt earlier was gone, leaving behind a feeling of regret. He put on the headphones. They blocked out the noise perfectly, making him feel separate from the sounds of the city. But even in the quiet, the small voice in his head that told him he had made a mistake would not go away. The next morning, Leo was in the park, trying to focus on his English grammar exercises. He sat on a bench under a big tree, the sounds of children playing and birds singing a gentle background noise. He saw Miss Evelyn Reed, a kind, older woman who often came to the park. He had seen her reading or just watching the world with a peaceful smile. Today, she was taking care of a small area of flowers near the edge of the park. Miss Reed seemed to have a quiet wisdom. She watched things carefully but was not nosy. She had sometimes said a kind word or given Leo a smile, and he felt comfortable around her. Leo sighed, looking at the headphones still in their box in his backpack. Miss Reed looked up from her flowers. Her eyes, though she had wrinkles around them, were sharp and observant. She seemed to notice that he was not happy. After a few quiet moments, she walked slowly towards him, holding a small garden tool. "Good morning, Leo," she said, her voice soft but clear. "You seem a little worried today." Leo gave a small smile. "Good morning, Miss Reed." "Yes, I think I am." He hesitated, not sure if he should tell her about his small money problem. Miss Reed sat down on the bench a little way away from him. "Sometimes," she said gently, looking at the colorful flowers, "our minds can be like these gardens. Full of beautiful things, but sometimes a few weeds can grow and distract us." Leo nodded slowly, understanding what she meant. "Is it something you would like to talk about?" she asked, her voice kind. He hesitated again, then sighed. "Well, I bought something yesterday. Something I really wanted. Noise-canceling headphones." "Ah, a treat for yourself," Ms. Reed said, her face showing no strong emotion. "Yes, but..." Leo stopped talking, taking the box out of his backpack and showing it to her. "They're wonderful. They really block out the noise. But I spent quite a lot of money on them. More than I had planned." Ms. Reed nodded, showing she understood. "And how does that make you feel now?" Leo looked down at the box in his hands. "A little disappointed in myself, I think. I was saving for a textbook, and now it will take longer. I felt so excited when I bought them, but now that feeling is gone, and I feel regret." He finally said the feeling that had been bothering him. Miss Reed's eyes became softer. "Regret is a heavy feeling, Leo. We often feel it when what we do is not in line with what we really want in the long run." She paused, then looked at him directly. "Tell me, Leo, when you saw these headphones at the market, what was the strongest feeling you had?" Leo thought for a moment, remembering the scene. Excitement, definitely. A strong desire to have them right away. I imagined all the ways they would make my English studies easier and more enjoyable. Excitement, Miss Reed repeated softly. A powerful feeling. And it often promises us immediate happiness. But sometimes, she pointed to her garden, the most beautiful flowers take time and careful work to grow. Just like our financial well-being. She picked a small, bright blue flower. This little flower might catch your eye with its bright color. It gives a moment of pleasure. But a whole garden, carefully planned and looked after, gives lasting beauty and food. Leo looked at the flower in her hand, then back at the headphone box. He was starting to understand what she meant. The quick happiness of buying the headphones had been like the single bright flower, attractive for a moment but not helping his bigger money goals, his garden. Our feelings, Leo, Ms. Reed continued, gently putting the flower back in the ground, are strong motivators. They can push us to do great things, but they can also lead us to make choices we later regret. Learning to recognize these feelings, especially when it comes to spending money, is a very important lesson. She looked at him with kind eyes. The excitement you felt was real. Wanting something that would make your life better is understandable. But maybe, next time, before you give in to that immediate feeling, you can take a moment. Ask yourself, is this something I need or just something I want? Does buying this help me reach my bigger goals? How will I feel about this tomorrow or next week? Leo listened carefully. Ms. Reed's words made sense with the regret he was feeling. He had acted without thinking, letting the strong feeling of wanting the headphones take over his more sensible thoughts and his plan to save money. It's not about never buying things you enjoy, Leo, Ms. Reed added gently. It's about being aware of the feelings that make you decide to buy them. Are you buying something because it truly makes your life better, or are you just trying to feel happy for a short time? Leo looked at the headphones again. The first happy feeling was now mixed with the wisdom of Ms. Reed's words. He had learned something important, a first step in understanding how his feelings and his money were connected. He realized that managing his money well was not just about numbers and plans, it was also about understanding the feelings behind his spending. And that understanding, he thought, would be important for him as he learned English and built a new life. Part 1, Mind Over Money, Episode 2, Old Family Sayings. The following week, Leo found himself back on the familiar park bench, the quiet rustling of leaves a peaceful counterpoint to the lingering unease about his recent headphone purchase. He was diligently reviewing English verb conjugations, the irregular verbs as always, a persistent challenge, much like his attempts at consistent saving. He'd managed to walk past the window display of another tempting gadget without going inside, a small victory that felt surprisingly significant. Miss Evelyn Reed was tending her beloved patch of flowers, her movements as graceful and unhurried as the blossoming petals themselves. The gentle warmth of the sun seemed to reflect the serenity in her expression. Eventually, she straightened, her gardening gloves dusted off, and made her way towards Leo, a knowing smile gracing her lips. "Hello again, Leo," she greeted him, her voice carrying a soothing quality. "Your focus seems intense today. Conquering those tricky English verbs?" "Hello, Ms. Reed," Leo replied, a genuine smile returning her greeting. "Trying my best. They seem to have a mind of their own sometimes." He held up his notebook. Just like my money sometimes." Ms. Reed chuckled softly as she settled onto the bench beside him. "Ah, yes. Money often seems to have a life of its own, doesn't it? It can move in ways we don't always expect. Her expression grew thoughtful. Last week, we were talking about the emotions that influence our spending. Have you had a chance to reflect on the beliefs that might be shaping those emotions? Leo nodded slowly. Yes, I have. I was thinking about some of the things I heard growing up. My grandma, as I mentioned, she always used to say, money is hard to come by. A sentiment born from experience, I imagine, Ms. Reed mused. Definitely, Leo agreed. She worked incredibly hard throughout her life, and things were often tight. That saying always carried a sense of caution, almost a worry that it would disappear quickly. And how do you think that has influenced you? Ms. Reed asked gently. Leo considered this. I think it makes me hesitant to spend sometimes, almost guilty. But then, I also have another voice in my head, from my Uncle Elias. He always used to say, money calls money. He was quite different from my grandma. He took risks, invested. He always seemed to believe that if you had some money, it would naturally attract more. Ms. Reed's eyebrows rose slightly, a thoughtful expression on her face. Ah, two very different philosophies indeed. Your Uncle Elias's saying carries a sense of optimism and perhaps a belief in the power of investment and opportunity. Yes, Leo confirmed. He always talked about making your money work for you. He wasn't always successful, but that was his core belief. So, you've grown up hearing these two contrasting ideas about money, Ms. Reed observed. One emphasizing scarcity and the difficulty of earning, the other suggesting abundance and the potential for growth. That must create quite a dynamic in your mind. Leo sighed. It does. Sometimes I feel like I should hoard every coin because it's so hard to get, like my grandma said. But then, I also have this urge to make it grow, to take chances, like my uncle. It's confusing. Ms. Reed nodded understandingly. It's natural to feel that conflict when you've been exposed to such different perspectives. Our early environment, the words we hear, the behaviors we witness, they lay down deep tracks in our understanding of the world, including the world of finance. She shared a story from her own past. My parents, as I mentioned last week, were quite frugal. A penny saved is a penny earned was their mantra. But my grandfather, on my mother's side, had a different view. He was a small business owner, and he believed in reinvesting profits to grow his enterprise. He would often say, "You have to spend money to make money." It wasn't about wasteful spending, but about strategic investment. So, you had a similar kind of contrast in your upbringing, Leo noted. I did, Ms. Reed confirmed. And just like you, I had to reconcile those different viewpoints. I learned that both frugality and strategic investment have their place. The key is understanding when to apply which principle and not letting an ingrained belief dictate every financial decision. She then focused on the two sayings Leo had shared. Let's look at your grandma's saying, money is hard to come by. While it's important to respect the effort that goes into earning money, believing this too strongly can lead to a scarcity mindset. This mindset can make you fearful of spending, even on things that could genuinely improve your life or help you grow. It can also make you miss out on opportunities because you're too afraid of losing what little you have. That makes sense, Leo said, thinking about his hesitation to invest in better English learning resources, always worried about the cost. Ms. Reed then addressed Uncle Elias's saying, money calls money has a different energy. It speaks of potential and growth. This mindset can encourage investment and a willingness to take calculated risks. However, if taken too far without a foundation of careful saving and understanding risk, it can lead to recklessness and the belief that money will magically multiply without effort. My uncle did have some less successful ventures, Leo admitted with a wry smile. Exactly, Ms. Reed responded gently. Neither of these sayings, taken in isolation, provides a complete or balanced financial philosophy. They are simply different lenses through which to view money, shaped by individual experiences and values. She leaned forward slightly. The important thing, Leo, is to recognize these early influences. To understand the stories we've been told about money. Your grandma's caution and your uncle's optimism are both part of your financial inheritance. Now, as you navigate your own financial journey, you have the opportunity to examine these inherited beliefs and decide which ones serve you best and which ones you might need to adjust. She suggested another exercise. Think about your Uncle Elias. What were the positive aspects of his money calls money philosophy? What were the potential downsides you observed? Do the same for your grandma's saying. What were the strengths of her cautious approach? What were its limitations? Leo nodded, already turning these questions over in his mind. Understanding these early narratives, Ms. Reed concluded, is like understanding the roots of a plant. To help it grow strong and healthy, you need to know the soil it came from. By recognizing the stories you've been told about money, you can cultivate a more conscious and balanced approach to your own finances, one that takes into account both the value of hard-earned money and the potential for it to grow wisely. Leo started to feel clear about his thoughts. The simple sayings from his grandma and uncle were not just casual words, they had a strong effect on him. These words shaped how he thought and acted about money. Ms. Reed was gently helping him understand this influence and see how it affected him. She was also guiding him to begin creating his own story about money. He wanted to find a balance between being careful and taking chances, without falling into fear or being too optimistic. As Leo learned English, he also learned more about himself, his role in the world, and the emotions connected to money. End of part 2. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next part of the story. The Psychology of Money. Part 1. Common Biases, the Traps We Fall Into. Episode 3. The Pain of Losing Out. Last week, life had felt sunny. Leo, usually careful with his money, had bought a lottery ticket on a whim. It was a small investment, a tiny risk, and he hadn't really expected anything to come of it. But luck, in its unpredictable way, had smiled upon him. He had won $100. The news had brought a rush of excitement. $100 felt like a small fortune. He had celebrated in a way that felt both special and responsible. He treated himself to a nice dinner at a restaurant, a place known for its delicious traditional Colombian food. He ordered bandeja paisa, a hearty platter of beans, rice, meat, and avocado, and enjoyed it slowly, savoring each bite. The restaurant had a warm, inviting atmosphere, with soft music playing in the background. It was a perfect way to mark the occasion. The dinner had been a highlight. The delicious food, the pleasant ambience, and the feeling of having a little extra money had combined to create a sense of well-being. But as the days passed, the initial thrill began to fade. The memory of the tasty bandeja paisa remained, but the feeling of having won the money became less intense. The $100, once a special bonus, gradually became integrated into his mental picture of his finances. It was nice to have, but it no longer felt extraordinary. This week, however, the weather inside Leo's mind was much stormier. It started with a friendly bet. A friend, Carlos, had proposed a small wager on a football match. Leo, usually cautious about gambling, had agreed. The bet was for $50. It seemed like a reasonable amount, a bit of fun. He lost. The loss itself wasn't catastrophic. $50 was a manageable sum. But the feeling that followed was surprisingly strong. It wasn't just disappointment. It was a wave of frustration, a sense of having been cheated, even though it was a fair bet, a feeling of, well, it felt bad. Much worse than the happiness he had felt from winning twice that amount just a few days earlier. Leo couldn't understand it. He had won $100. He had lost $50. Logically, he was still $50 ahead. But emotionally, he felt much further behind. The small loss felt like a much bigger setback than the larger win had felt like a victory. He found himself dwelling on the lost $50. He replayed the football match in his mind, wondering if he had made a mistake in his prediction. He thought about the things he could have done with that money: a new book, a few weeks' worth of arepas for breakfast, a small contribution to his savings. The loss seemed to magnify itself in his thoughts, growing larger and more significant with each passing hour. Confused and a little disturbed by the intensity of his own reaction, Leo decided to seek out Ms. Reed. Ms. Reed was a kind, older woman who often spent time in the local park. She had a gentle demeanor and a knack for explaining complex ideas in simple, clear language. Leo had spoken with her on several occasions, and he trusted her wisdom. He found her sitting on a bench near her favorite spot in the park, a small patch of flowers she tended with care. The flowers were a burst of color, a small oasis of beauty in the bustling city. Ms. Reed looked up as Leo approached, her face softening into a warm smile. "Hello, Leo," she said, her voice calm and reassuring. "You seem a little troubled today. Is everything all right?" Leo sighed, sitting down on the bench beside her. "Hello, Ms. Reed. I'm not sure. I'm confused about something. About how I'm feeling." "Tell me about it," Ms. Reed encouraged, turning her attention fully to him. Leo hesitated for a moment, gathering his thoughts. "Well, last week, I won $100 in the lottery. I was happy, of course. I enjoyed it. But this week, I lost $50 on a bet with a friend. And I feel much worse about losing the $50 than I felt good about winning the $100. It doesn't make sense. I still have more money than I started with, but I feel like I've lost more than I gained." Ms. Reed nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. "You're experiencing a common human tendency, Leo. It's related to two important concepts in psychology: loss aversion and gain-seeking behavior." "Loss aversion and gain-seeking behavior?" Leo repeated, the words sounding a bit foreign to him. "What are those?" Ms. Reed explained, loss aversion means that people feel the pain of losing something much more than the joy of gaining the same amount. So, losing $50 doesn't just feel like losing $50. For most people, it feels much worse than the happiness of winning $50. It's like the bad feeling is much stronger than the good feeling. She paused, then continued, "Think of it this way. Imagine someone offered you a simple game. A coin toss. If it lands on heads, you win $50. If it lands on tails, you lose $50. Would you play?" Leo considered the question. I don't think so. I probably wouldn't. And why is that? Ms. Reed asked gently. Because I don't want to lose $50, Leo admitted. The thought of losing it feels unpleasant. Even though I could win the same amount. That's loss aversion in action, Ms. Reed said. Even though the odds are equal, the feeling of losing is more powerful, so you might choose to avoid the risk altogether. Leo nodded, beginning to understand. So, my brain is making me feel worse about losing the $50 than it made me feel good about winning the $100? Precisely, Ms. Reed confirmed. It's a fundamental aspect of how our brains process gains and losses. We're wired to be more sensitive to potential threats, and losses are often perceived as threats. He then turned her attention to the small patch of flowers, carefully adjusting a delicate pink blossom. Gain-seeking behavior, on the other hand, describes our tendency to pursue rewards and positive outcomes. When you won the $100, you experienced a surge of pleasure. That pleasure motivated you to enjoy it, to treat yourself. But the intensity of that pleasure can sometimes be short-lived. We adapt to positive changes relatively quickly. So, I got used to having the extra $100? Leo asked. Yes, Ms. Reed replied. And that's important because it explains why the $50 loss feels so significant. When you won the $100, it became a new reference point. You were, for a time, in a slightly better financial position. Losing $50 then feels like a larger drop from that improved position than it would have felt if you hadn't won the lottery at all. It's a change from what your brain now considers normal. She picked a small, smooth stone from the path and held it out to Leo. Imagine this stone represents your $100 win. It's a pleasant surprise, and you enjoy it. But after a while, it just becomes another stone. You adjust to having it. Then, she picked up a smaller, slightly rougher stone. Now, this represents your $50 loss. Because you were recently used to having the bigger stone, losing the smaller one feels like losing a larger portion of what you now consider your resources. It's not just the $50 itself, it's the change from a slightly better situation that makes it feel so painful. Leo looked at the two stones, his brow furrowed in concentration. So, it's not just about the amounts, but about the change in my financial situation? Exactly, Ms. Reed said. Our emotions are often influenced by context and comparison. The recent win created a temporary high point, and the loss feels like a greater fall from that point than it would have otherwise. She placed the stones back on the path. This is why people sometimes make seemingly irrational decisions about money. They might hold on to a losing investment for too long, hoping to avoid the pain of realizing the loss, or they might take unnecessary risks after a win, feeling invincible because of the temporary boost to their confidence. Both loss aversion and gain-seeking can lead us astray if we're not aware of their influence. Leo sat in silence for a moment, absorbing the information. The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fit together. He understood now why losing the $50 felt so much worse than winning the $100 had felt good. It wasn't just about the numbers, it was about the complex interplay of his emotions, his expectations, and the context of his recent financial experience. I think I understand, he said finally. It's not just about the money. It's about how my brain processes the change. That's a very insightful conclusion, Leo, Ms. Reed said, smiling warmly. And it's a valuable lesson. Learning to recognize these emotional patterns can help you make more informed decisions, not just about money, but about many things in life. Leo stood up, feeling a sense of clarity he hadn't had before. The disappointment of losing the $50 hadn't vanished completely, but it was now tempered with understanding. He knew that his reaction was normal, a product of the way human brains are wired. And he knew that by being aware of these tendencies, he could strive to make more rational choices in the future. "Thank you, Ms. Reed," he said sincerely. "You've helped me a lot." "You're very welcome, Leo," Ms. Reed replied. "Remember, it's not about eliminating emotions. It's about understanding them and learning to manage them wisely." As Leo walked away from the park, the sounds of the city seemed a little less overwhelming, a little less confusing. He still felt the sting of the lost bet, but he also felt a newfound sense of control. He had gained something far more valuable than the $50 he had lost. He had gained a deeper understanding of himself. We hope you enjoyed today's story and that it helped you practice your English listening skills.
The Psychology of Money. Part 1. Common Biases, the Traps We Fall Into. Episode 4. Maya's New Phone. Cali was a city where many different styles and trends came together. You could see people wearing traditional clothes and others wearing the latest fashions. This made the city exciting, but sometimes it could also make people feel like they needed to have the newest things. Leo was walking through the city center one afternoon. He had his old phone in his hand. It was a bit slow, and the screen was cracked, but it still worked. He used it to check his English lessons, listen to music, and stay in touch with his friends. He didn't think it was a bad phone. Suddenly, he saw his friend Maya. Maya was a student from his English class. She was talking with some other students, and she was holding a brand new phone. It was the latest model with a big, bright screen and a shiny case. Leo stopped and looked at his own phone. Compared to Maya's phone, his looked very old. Maya saw Leo and smiled. Leo, what do you think of my new phone?" she asked. She held it up so everyone could see it. "Wow, it's very nice, Maya," Leo said. He felt a little embarrassed to take out his own phone. He put it back in his pocket quickly. "Thanks. I just got it yesterday," Maya said. "It has so many new features. The camera is much better than my old one, and it's much faster. You should get one." One of the other students, Carlos, agreed. "Yeah, Leo, your phone is a bit old, right? You should upgrade." Leo felt his face get warm. He didn't like that his friends were talking about his phone. He knew his phone was older, but he had other things he needed to spend money on, like his English textbooks and his apartment rent. A new phone was not a priority. I'm okay with my phone," Leo said, but he didn't sound very sure. Maya looked at him. "But this phone is so much better. Look at this camera." She showed Leo a photo she had taken. It was very clear and bright. Leo had to admit the photo was much better than any photo he could take with his phone. "It was a little expensive," Maya said, "but I worked some extra hours at my job, and my parents help a bit. It was worth it." Leo started to think about his phone. Was it really that bad? Was he the only one with an old phone? He began to feel like he was missing out. All the other students probably had new phones. He felt a growing desire to have a phone like Maya's. The students continued to talk about Maya's phone. They talked about all the things it could do and how cool it looked. Leo listened, but he felt more and more uncomfortable. He started to think less about his English lessons and more about new phones. He wanted to have the same things as his friends. He wanted to fit in. Later that day, Leo went to the park. He often went there to study and relax. He saw Ms. Reed, an older woman who often gave him good advice. She was looking at her flowers, as usual. Leo sat down on a bench near her. "Hello, Leo," Ms. Reed said. "You don't seem very happy today. What's wrong?" Leo sighed. "I saw Maya's new phone today," he said. "It's much nicer than mine. Now I feel like my phone is very old and bad. Ms. Reed listened carefully. And how does that make you feel? She asked. I feel embarrassed, Leo said. And I feel like I want a new phone, too. Maya said I should get one. Carlos said my phone is old. I feel like I need a new phone to be like them. Ms. Reed nodded. I understand, Leo. It's normal to want things that your friends have. But it's important to think about why you want them. But Maya's phone is better, Leo said. The camera is better. It's faster. It's just a better phone. Ms. Reed smiled gently. It's true that newer phones often have better features. But do you need those features? Or do you just want them because Maya and Carlos have them? Leo thought about this. He used his phone to study English, listen to music, and talk to his friends. His old phone could do all of those things. He didn't need a better camera or a faster processor. He wanted those things because Maya and Carlos had them. Exactly, Ms. Reed said. It's easy to want things when we see other people have them. This is called social pressure. Social pressure is when you feel like you have to do something or have something because other people are doing it or having it. Social pressure, Leo repeated. That's a good way to describe it. Yes, Ms. Reed said. And social pressure can make us make bad choices, especially with money. We might buy things we don't need just to impress other people or to feel like we belong. She gave Leo an example. Imagine that all your friends buy expensive new shoes. You have shoes that are comfortable and in good condition, but you start to feel like your shoes are not good enough. You feel pressure to buy new shoes even though you don't need them. This is social pressure. Leo thought about the expensive shoes. He had seen some students at his English school with very fashionable shoes. He had felt a little jealous. Understand, Leo said. So, wanting a new phone just because Maya and Carlos have new phones is social pressure. That's right, Ms. Reed said. It's important to be aware of social pressure. When you want to buy something, ask yourself these questions. Do I really need this? Or do I just want it because other people have it? Will this purchase help me reach my goals? Or will it make it harder? Leo thought about his goals. His main goal was to improve his English. He was also trying to save money for the future. A new phone was not going to help him reach those goals. In fact, it would make it harder because it would cost a lot of money. I feel much better now, Leo said. I don't need a new phone. My old phone is good enough. I was just feeling pressure from Maya and Carlos. That's wonderful, Leo, Ms. Reed said. It's important to think for yourself and not let other people control your choices. You are smart and you know what is best for you. Don't let social pressure make you spend money on things you don't need. Leo smiled. Thank you, Ms. Reed. You always give me such good advice. Ms. Reed smiled back. You're welcome, Leo. Just remember, true confidence comes from within, not from having the newest phone or the most expensive shoes. True wealth is about having peace of mind and reaching your own goals. Leo left the park feeling much more confident. He was still using his old phone, and he was okay with that. He knew that his phone was good enough, and he was not going to let social pressure make him buy something he didn't need. He was proud of himself for making his own decisions. He continued to focus on his English lessons and his other goals. He learned that it was much more important to be true to himself than to try to keep up with others. We hope you enjoyed today's story and that it helped you practice your English listening skills. If you did, please give this video a like. And if you want to hear more stories and lessons to improve your English, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.